But if you're a guy, say 34 plus, right, and you're thinking of, I want a wife now. I'm ready to have a wife. I've done my playing around. I've done my traveling. I've built my business, or at least I've solidified my career. If you fall into that category, and then you're a smart man, and if you've read the statistics around divorce in the West, then you may begin to think, bloody hell, this feels a bit unsafe to do it in the West. Right, so what the hell am I going to do? How am I going to do this? The lead attorney, really pushes prenups, which is totally fine. But there is another alternative, and the alternative is to travel elsewhere. That's the alternative, to travel elsewhere. Now, we, as I said, you've seen the thumbnail, women in Kenya, right? So as I'm talking to you, let me set up what I'm going to show you. Now, the point of what I'm going to show you is to say this, right? I am not saying that the women in other countries or the women in Kenya are physically any better. That's not what I'm saying. I am not saying that the women in Kenya are physically any better, because I don't think they are. Any better looking, rather. Any better looking. I don't think they are. I don't think the women in Kenya are any better looking at all. That is not the issue here. Let's add this in, right? That's not the issue here. So, if you're an African American in the States, or if you're in the UK, or if you're in France and you're watching this, Italy, anywhere where you're watching this, right, you're going to see women who look like this, right? Personally, I think black women are gorgeous to look at. Right, academically brilliant, all of those bits and pieces. Academically great, great to look at, attractive. Obviously my mom's a black woman, and I've got no black sisters. I've got 3 black sisters-in-law. I've got 4 older brothers. Those of you that have watched my channel have heard me say this before. I've got 4 older brothers. 3 of them have been married to great black women, right, of Jamaican heritage, for plus was it 25, 30 plus 30 years. And my oldest brother got married in the 80s. The one after him got married, I think the other 2 got married in the very early, they all got married in the late 80s. Wow. Thinking about it, they all got married in the late 80s. One day I'll show you one of the pictures of me at one of my brother's weddings, right? Oh boy, it's when I had hair. But anyway, all right, so they all got married in the 80s. So they were lucky enough, fortunate enough, blessed enough to marry, right, some amazing black women of Jamaican heritage. As you know, 2 of my brothers live in the States. One lives in Maryland, right, just outside Baltimore, and the other one's in in Miami, right? What is he? Seventh-day Adventist, right? And then I've got 2 brothers living in the UK, London. Again, been married for many, 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 many years. So, I love black women. I think all the women, white, Chinese, whatever, I think all women are attractive. But my penchant is for black women. I love black women, right? However, what you're let's be as positive as possible. What you're gonna find in Kenya, on the African continent, in Ghana, in Somalia, Adangbi writes Somalia, what you're gonna find is not only, and these women that you're seeing are all from Kenya. These are all Kenyan women. All right, some of them apparently are famous, but generally speaking, they're all Kenyan women, right? Some of them you're going to say, they're all models. You're going to find these women walking around in London. You're going to find these women, I'm sure, walking around in New York. You're going to find these women, I'm sure, walking around in Miami. You're going to find these women, I'm sure, walking around in every city on planet Earth. Excuse me. You're going to find these women walking around. So it's not the physical stuff that I'm focused on. What I'm focused on is the mindset of not all, but most African women on the continent of Africa. Now, remember what I started out by saying. If you want legacy, if you want a family, if you want to marry, if you want to get with a woman who wants marriage for life, and not just until she's bored, or not just until she has lost herself in the relationship and doesn't know who she is anymore and needs to go and find herself, If you want something opposite to that, if you want a woman who values, who doesn't see you as a man just from being a male as being toxic, then you may want to think about the African continent. Again, as I said, you got Asia, you got South America. All of those women are great. But the whole thing about, a society, trying to find a society that doesn't automatically see just what you are as being toxic, right? I don't want my son to be seen as toxic. He's 18. He's a kid. 10 years ago, he was a baby at primary school. So I don't want him to be seen as toxic by the society that he decides to settle down in. That's really important for me. So I've already advised him, hey, listen, after your degree, I will pay for you, right, to travel to South America. Me and you will go to Brazil. If you and your mates don't want to go, you can come to Brazil with me. We can go to Bahia, check out some capoeira. We can go to, but definitely go to the African continent, Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Burkina Faso, where 50% of my DNA comes from, which means 50% of his DNA comes from. Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Botswana. We'll check out all of these countries, Zimbabwe, even South Africa. We will check out these countries. I'll check it out with him, and just to let him know that, hey, he doesn't need to suffer being called derogatory names, whether they be racist names or sexist names. He doesn't need to suffer that in the UK. He doesn't need to suffer it. He doesn't need to suffer this barrage of berating just because he's a young black man, right? So yeah, so I want to make it clear, right? I am not saying that these women are perfect. That's not what this is. That's not what this is about. What I am saying is that these women are more traditional. That's what I'm saying. So you're getting all of the hardware that you would get from black women in America, or black women in the Caribbean, or black women in the UK. You're getting all of the hardware, which obviously as heterosexual males, we want, right? But also you're getting women who are more traditional, are happy to be, are happy for their husband to take the lead, are happy for their husband to be the protector, are happy for their husband to be the provider, are happy for their husbands to be their heads, again, which is a Bible reference. Bible says that the husband is the head of the wife. It doesn't say that the husband is the head of the house. It says the husband is the head of the wife. That's what it says. All right. Need to get that one clear. Right. So that is what you're getting when you go to, not all, but very many African countries now. I want to make it clear, right? Things are changing all over Africa. I don't know, maybe it's because of social media. You've got a lot more people, a lot more women checking Western social media, right? Now that's got its pros and cons, but one of the cons is the whole thing about the breakdown of traditional values, or if you like, women on the African continent that are letting go of their traditional African values. Remember earlier on I said that most African countries are conservative, most African cultures are conservative with a small c. Remember I said that? It's true. It's still that way, right? Conservative in terms of dress, conservative in terms of outlook, conservative in terms of family makeup, right? So an extended family as well, right? So all of those things are still there, still in place, although it's slowly beginning to break up, right? Slowly beginning to disintegrate. But I would say, in my opinion, it's about 20 to 30 years behind, right? African Caribbean, African American communities in the West, right? So this is, so what I'm saying here is, if you want legacy, if you want a wife who doesn't believe in divorce, if you want someone to be there, if you want a situation that's worth your commitment, that's worth you dying for as a man, as a husband, that's worth you killing yourself for, that's worth you going out and breaking your back for, which is what men have historically done for their wives and kids and family. If you want that kind of a situation, then you may want to consider any country on the African continent. Obviously, we're looking, and to be honest with you, one of the reasons, one of the motivators is not just about making money and having houses and property and all that kind of stuff, but it's also what kind of relationship, what kind of woman you can find, what kind of wife you can find to marry. That's also it. Most men actually want to be married, but most men do not want to be taken for a ride like their fathers were. Most men don't want that. Most men want a family and kids. Most black men want a family and children. That is what most black men want. But they don't want their investment to be made in vain. They don't want their investment to be made in vain, right? I was on a live a few months ago with Jess X. I had the pleasure of her coming on to one of my lives, and she said, I can't remember the topic of the live, but it was something like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Right? It was something like, the question was, is the juice worth the squeeze? That was the content of the, that was the question. Is the juice worth the squeeze? So, a lot of black guys living in the West, living in America, living in the UK, we ask that same question. Is the juice worth the squeeze? We have to be honest about it. Is the juice worth the squeeze? So in the UK, is the cold weather, moving on from women, is the cold weather worth the squeeze? Some think it is and some think it's not. Personally, right, there's aspects of London that I've loved over the years, the nightclubs, the theatre, the restaurants, the range of foods that you can eat, Borough Market, where you can go and get different foods, Brixton, where you can go and get different foods from different cultures. It's good. You've got so much going on in London, right? But, you've got to make your own judgment call about these things. But is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the disrespect from your boss, and again, some of us get on well with our bosses at work, but is the disrespect that you may or may not get from your boss and your girlfriend or the women around you, your church sisters, is the juice worth the squeeze in your little part of the West where you currently reside? Is working to pay that's your sky high rent and mortgage, is that worth the squeeze, fellas? Is the morning rush hour through the rat race in New York, in whatever city you're in the States or in the UK, in London, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the damage to your black male mental health, right? Because again, living in the West, believe it or not, there is, and I've spoken about it on this channel already, right? Listen to this, right? Figures for mental ill health in African countries, for Africans in Africa, is the same as it is for Europeans and white people in America, right? But black mental ill health for African Americans and black Brits, because I know you African Americans like to call us black Brits, even though we don't see ourselves as black Brits, right? At least I don't. But our mental ill health is higher for us as black people living in these countries than it is for white people. But Africans in Africa, their mental ill health is the same as it is for white people in white countries. So make that make sense, man. So, we as black men living in the West need to prioritize our mental health. Meditate on that. Are the endless coffee dates, dinner dates with entitled, delusional modern feminists worth the squeeze? Right? That's a merry-go-round, man. And honestly, I've been on dates like that where, anyway, but is it worth the squeeze? You might think so. And that's fine. That is fine. If you think so, good for you, right? Seriously, if you think so, good for you. Good for you if you think so. Good for you if you think so. And I want to make it crystal clear, man. There's aspects of living in the UK that I have enjoyed over the years. I've enjoyed all the nightclubs. I've enjoyed, we used to run nightclubs in London, right? I've enjoyed all of that. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all of that. I've enjoyed the in the early 80s when the hip hop scene came from our African American brothers, when we got hip hop from our African American ADOS brothers, right? I enjoyed all of that. All of that early scene in the very early 80s, 82, 83, 84, SAS breakers and poppers forever. I enjoyed the Covent Garden break dancing. I enjoyed going down to Spats and the whole scene down there. I enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed, that was great. And then later on, the clubbing at the Electric Ballroom and going down to, God, where else? The Camden Lock, going down to, was that Dingwalls down there, and all of the warehouse parties and all of that. I enjoyed all of that. We've had some good times in the 70s, making bikes, literally finding bikes. I say finding bikes. I'm not going to say stealing bikes, finding bikes, taking the handlebars off and creating new bikes, getting great big cow horns and popping wheelies. I enjoyed all of that. So there's aspects of it that were fun, being at secondary school, not getting a chance to go down to the Brixton riots, but the very next day having all of my school friends in 1980 and 81, or whenever the first and second riots were, and having all my school friends come to school the next day with new games, new trousers, new gabichis, and new Farahs, and new waffle trousers, new ballet shoes, and being jealous. Well, man, I didn't get down to the riots, man, to get anything, man. Didn't get my Adidas, my God, what Adidas Bamba, Adidas Mamba, Adidas Samba. There's a massive long history of enjoyment that we've had in the UK. But I am now the age that I am at, right? And I can't look back. I've got to look at what's happening now and what I want to happen in the future. I've got to look at that for my life and my son's life, right? And I'm just basically saying to you, you may want to do the same, right? There are gorgeous black women living all over planet Earth. All I'm saying here is that you may want to think about where you're going to get one with more of a traditional attitude. That is what I'm saying. It's up to you. This is about choice. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm simply saying you're going to find more women with more of a traditional attitude on the African continent. Am I saying it's perfect? No. Am I saying that am I saying that some of the views of some African countries, some people in some African countries is a bit ski-whiff? Yeah, of course it is. Am I saying that some of these women are not going to purely be after you for your money? Well, of course they are. Some of them are going to be after you for your money. But how is that different to women anywhere else? You're going to be expected to pay for everything anyway. And so, in my opinion, as long as the woman's doing what she should do, then what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Seriously, nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with it. And if you're seriously looking for legacy, right, then what you're going to do is screen out and vet the ones that are not also looking for legacy. It's as simple as that. You're going to have a massive, wide selection of gorgeous, beautiful African women in Kenya, gorgeous, beautiful Kenyan women, right? And you're just going to have more to choose from. It's as simple as that. And you're going to have more to choose from a bunch of women who actually want to stay married. You've got to use your common sense, obviously. You've got to use your wisdom, obviously. If you haven't got wisdom, ask for some, right? From him, wisdom is a free gift. Ask, right? Right? But you've got to use your nous, right? Because when you go, we're going to have people, not just women, but people coming from all directions trying to get a piece of you because you're a foreigner. Right. And, I was listening to Falcon Black's stream and he did say that, when you go to any one of these African countries, they will see you as a foreigner. He's correct. Absolutely. When you go to any African country, they will see you as a foreigner when you open up your mouth. Sometimes they can look at your clothes and say, nah, man, look the way he's dressed. That guy there is a foreigner, right? Just from the way that you're dressed. But more often than not, it's going to be when you open your mouth and you talk, right? I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. It's going to happen. That's going to happen. If I go to Jamaica, right, they don't see me as a Jamaican. They see me as a foreigner. I'm a English boy. That's what I am. I'm a English boy. That's what I am. I'm an English boy. Fine. I am. To them, I'm an English boy. To me, I'm an African. But to my Jamaican family in Jamaica, even to my mum, even to my granddad, even to my brothers that were born in Jamaica, 3 of them were born in Jamaica, 2 born in the UK. Even to them, me is a English boy. Right? I don't care because, you've got to know what you are. I know that I am an African. I know I'm God's son, right? That's really what I am, right? But from an earthly point of view, no, I'm an African. I'm 50% Yoruba and I'm 50% Burkina Faso. But I have a Jamaican culture, heritage, not even culture, heritage. You got to know what you are, man. That's why I've done the bloody DNA test, right? That's why I've done it, right? Yeah, anyway, getting back to the point. So, you will be seen as a foreigner. But guess what? If you have children there, if you get married there and you have children, do you think your children are going to be seen as foreigners? Do you think your children are going to be seen as foreigners? What about your grandchildren? You see, in the UK, I am a second generation, Jamaican in the UK. I was born here. Actually, that's not true. 3rd generation. My granddad came here in 1960. My mom came here in 66. So I am 3rd generation in this country, right? Do you think, right, when somebody as dark as me walks down the street, not just in London, but out of London somewhere, do you think people don't stop and do a double take because they see a black guy? What do you think? Be honest, man. What do you think? So I'm saying all of that to say that, 1, 2, 3 generations down the line, if you settle in any African country, you will no longer, right, or at least your legacy, your children will not be seen as foreigners. In the UK, in any European country, right, we're always going to be seen as foreigners, always. That's just a fact, right? It's just what it is. I'm not saying you shouldn't stay here. I'm just stating something that's a point of fact, right? We can not. It's not about liking it, but it's about saying whether or not it's true or not. All right. So guys, I just wanted to make that point, really, right? That the women you can see on screen, you will find them all over the Caribbean looking like this. You'll find them all over England looking like this. You find them all over America looking like this, more or less. Right. Some are slightly bigger though, but that's a different conversation. Right? But the point here is I'm focused here on the software, if you like, what's going on up here, right? What's going on here in the minds of African women, and whether or not that's worth your time, your effort, and your relocation. But we'll carry on looking at making money. We'll carry on looking at not jobs. We'll carry on looking at apartments and houses and how to relocate. I'll have guests on the channel looking at all of that. I will definitely do all of that. But this one is simply about saying the other thing that as men, the other thing that we are interested in, because we're heterosexual, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There still isn't. It's not illegal to be a heterosexual male. It's not illegal yet, right? So the other thing we're going to be we are interested in is a relationship or a marriage, right? But the idea is to find someone who wants to not just get married, but the idea is to find someone who actually is interested in staying married. That's the idea, to find someone who's actually interested in staying in it for the rest of their life, right? And what I'm saying here is that the more traditional a woman is, right, in a traditional culture, you're going to have more chance of you getting that and having some kind of legacy with children who grow up under your roof. That's